Would OP be the jerk for calling a friend unreasonable for being upset that their maid missed an extra day of work because they were attending their brother's funeral? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for only buying food for myself? I, 19-year-old female, have been home from college for about a month now. I live at home with my mom, her boyfriend, my two younger sisters, both 15-year-old female, and her boyfriend's two sons, 13 and 12-year-old male. I didn't even know his kids were living here permanently until I got back for summer break. I don't have a problem with them personally, we barely speak. The only thing is food in this house disappears constantly. It's not that my mom and her boyfriend don't buy groceries. They do, but no matter how much food is in the house, it's gone in a day or two. My younger sister and stepbrothers, I guess, eat all the time. They'll eat a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then still go downstairs constantly throughout the day and night making snacks, extra meals, or just raiding the fridge. Like, I'm not exaggerating, sometimes they make 10 different things between meals. Even with leftovers, I'll come home and there's nothing left. I've asked my mom about it, and she'll say she told them to save me some, but they never do. It's happened so many times that I just gave up. I started putting food aside before I leave the house, but even then someone would eat it, so now I've just started door dashing my own food or cooking my own food and keeping it in my mini fridge from college. I stock it with groceries I buy with my own money and just cook for myself when I need to eat. I don't touch the shared food anymore, and I don't ask anyone to share mine. When my mom and her boyfriend are at work and the fridge is empty and my siblings are hungry because they ate all the food in 2 days, I don't bat an eye because it's not my fault or responsibility. The other day, my mom made a comment about how I only think about myself and I should think about the house as a whole. My sisters are playing a part in this, but the majority of it is on her boyfriend's kids. Before I left for college and they didn't live here, food would last. I told that to my mom and she's like, they're still growing and you're just being dramatic because you don't like them living here. That's not the case at all. I get that maybe I'm wrong for door dashing or cooking food while they're hungry, but I'm also tired of being hungry and stressed in my own home. They don't think about me when they're eating my leftovers. Am I the jerk? Not only do I think OP's not the jerk, I feel like they're learning a very nice life skill here. OP's gonna figure out like what ingredients they like, what foods they like, they're gonna learn how to cook meals for themselves, or well, at least the efficient ones. Truth be told, OP's door dashing their own food or cooking their own food, for all we know, it could just be like bags of pizza rolls or something. Liquid Len commented, so you weren't getting enough food by your own mother's admission. Now you are getting enough, but in poker terms, you're running a side pot. Meanwhile, the larger population has one fewer people to split food with. They would see the benefit of this if you'd been getting enough food. If there was enough to go around, by removing yourself, you would be benefiting the house. They don't keep enough food around, and you're helping with that. They'll be raiding your mini fridge next. Not the jerk, get a lock. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my sister-in-law to rub sunscreen on my back when I have back acne? I, 31-year-old female, have a really bad back acne. I was going to the beach with my mom, 53-year-old female, my brother, 28-year-old male, and my brother's wife, 26-year-old female. I don't know my sister-in-law very well, but she seems very sweet. She had offered to rub sunscreen on my mom. After sister-in-law was finished with my mom, I asked sister-in-law if she can rub sunscreen on my back. She said she was happy to, and she did, but that evening, my brother confronted me. He said his wife has many issues, including social anxiety. He said she has a problem saying no. He said she told him how uncomfortable she felt putting sunscreen on my back. He told me it was inconsiderate of me to ask someone who's not in healthcare to touch diseased skin. Sister-in-law continued being very sweet to me and my mom. My brother seemed cold with me and he was very protective of his wife. Am I the jerk? Just on like the principle of basic baseline expectations when you're around somebody that you don't really know that well, even if they are an in-law, I just feel like it's a bit weird to be like, can you rub some sunscreen on my back? Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but still. Wild Ticket 1413 commented, soft, you're the jerk. It's a little weird to ask someone you don't know well to rub sunscreen on your back, even if you don't have acne. You may have put her in an uncomfortable position where she likely felt obligated to do what you asked. Furthermore, your mom was there. She's someone who is much closer to you. You should have just asked her. Although your brother is a jerk for calling acne diseased skin. Acne is a skin condition. It's not a contagious disease. You didn't put your sister-in-law at risk by asking her to touch your back. You just asked her to do something that many people may find unpleasant. Meerkatable commented, "Yeah, it's weird to have asked her when you had your mom and brother there and you don't know her very well, but it's also not a huge misstep. And your brother was super rude about it. I understand how having acne made her feel even more awkward about it and that she didn't feel comfortable saying no or bringing it up later. He could have just been an adult about it and pulled you aside later to say something like, 'Hey, it's no big deal, but I just wanted to let you know that sister-in-law felt a little uncomfortable rubbing sunscreen on you since she doesn't know you all that well. Feel free to ask me next time.' Bro is the drama." Our next story is, am I the jerk for making my daughter go to bed early even though all of her friends stay up late? My daughter, 12-year-old female, recently started complaining that their bedtime is unfair because literally all her friends stay up late. They don't have bedtimes. For context, I have her devices set to start turning off at about 10:30 p.m. Phone first, iPad, consoles, and computer, then TV. By 11:30, all of her devices are turned off, and she should be in bed sleeping by midnight. I think that's more than reasonable for a kid her age, especially during the summer. Last night she had a meltdown and said I was mean and wasn't being fair, crying and everything. I try to stay calm and just let her vent. I don't want her staying up late because it's nothing but trouble, especially online, and I don't want her sleeping away her summers by staying up all night. My wife says that I should compromise. Am I the jerk for not letting her stay up late like her friends? I think ultimately OP's not the jerk. I know if I went back in time to my 12-year-old self, I would say OP is absolutely the jerk. And to be honest, I got away with staying up late way more than I should have. And honestly, part of me hurts a little thinking about how much not sleeping enough all throughout my developmental adolescence may in some way have affected me. External Science 6849 commented, "You're not the jerk. Devices off at 10:30 to 11:30 p.m. is actually quite late for her age, but reasonable for the summer. What time does she want to stay awake until? I'm almost 30 and to be honest, I actually hate all this technology that's easily available to kids. It's mind-numbing that they just sit there on their phones all day doom scrolling, and their phones are constantly buzzing with messages from 4+ apps. My stepdaughter isn't much older than your daughter, and if she's not napping, she's on her phone, and it drives me mad. When I was about 13 or 14, I was allowed to stay up until whatever time I wanted, but if I didn't wake up for school or suffered the next day, it was my own fault and would have to face the consequences. Sometimes I'd be up reading until 1 a.m., and dang, that 6 a.m. alarm killed me, but it just meant by 9 to 10 p.m., I was tired and went to bed. Maybe do a trial run for a couple of weeks with your daughter and let her stay up until whenever she wanted, but no devices or TV past your cutoff time, and she had to be up at 9 a.m. If not a school night, or only allow it on a weekend as long as she's got her homework and chores done. At the end of the day, she's still only 12 and needs adequate sleep and no technology at least an hour before bed so that her brain can rest." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my fiance one of her bridesmaids can't bring her boyfriend? I, 26-year-old male, and my fiancé, 28-year-old female, are set to get married within the next year. While we're making our invitations, we came across an issue. One of her friends, we'll call her Emily, has the worst boyfriend in the world. He's insanely rude, a complete misogynist, and an all-around deadbeat. In the first year of our relationship, Emily would call us all the time complaining about, we'll call him Rick, saying that he would stalk her at every bar and do a bunch of weird crap, and almost like an African wild dog, they hunt by wearing down their prey. Eventually, I guess he wore her out until they started dating? Anyways, in that time, I said a lot of things about Rick before they went out together, which has even caused Emily to exclude me from all events involving my fiance's friend group. It's never been confirmed, but I'm sure it has to do with my well-known hatred of Rick. Anyways, things came to a head when making the invitations. I said that he's absolutely not coming to our wedding and that I didn't care, which then prompted my fiancé to be panicking due to her friend group's dynamic. She told me that if this were to go through, it would cause Emily to not come at all, which would potentially cause even more drama with her friend group, which would lead to potentially a situation that would ruin the wedding. For context, everyone hates Rick, all her friends do, but they don't tell her that to Emily's face. Rick was found to have compiled suggestive pictures of some of Emily's friends in a file in his phone. People gave restraining orders against that man. He humiliates Emily publicly for amusement and constantly argues with other people in that friend group. He makes women uncomfortable, and my entire family is only women and my 2 daughters. The last thing I would want is for my fiancée to feel uneasy at her own wedding, but I don't feel comfortable having Rick around. So Reddit, am I the jerk for not wanting Rick at my wedding? Adding detail, her friends aren't the ones with restraining orders, and yes, the explicit pictures were unclothed photos he had collected via a local Reddit thread he made to obtain them from their exes. Also, African wild dogs hunt by wearing down their prey. I hadn't realized how it looked until someone pointed it out. My bad, sincerely. Oof, I don't want to get sidetracked, but apparently OP wrote this story and initially didn't have clarification on what they meant by an African wild dog. So they just wrote Rick chased after her like an African wild dog and then moved on from that statement. I'm sure that one got OP brownie points with all the people commenting on the post. That said, Rick sounds like, by all measures, a very horrible person that, understandably, especially when your family is all women, you wouldn't want him close to any of them. You wouldn't want him to even, learn their faces, because God forbid he's going to go on his local Reddit thread and try to get naughty photos of them. If I were OP, I would be like, I'm sorry, honey, but if not inviting that predator means the wedding is ruined, then the wedding is already ruined to begin with. Narya Genesis commented, your fiancé is fine with you being excluded by Emily and Rick, but is throwing a tantrum at Rick receiving the same treatment because Emily will throw her own tantrum. Emily's feelings and drama is more important to your fiancé than you. Let that sink in, and do with it what you will, not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk? I'm a 58-year-old only child. My very elderly parents want to have a say in the protections I put in place after I'm dead for my adult vulnerable child. As I said, I'm an only child whose parents have always had problems with boundaries. I'm now almost 60 and they're making estate plans. Instead of just making their plans, they're insisting on having meetings with us so that I can explain to them how I'll make sure my oldest child, who needs help, will be provided for. They feel they should have a say in the provisions I make for my child. My husband and I have been together for 30 years. Our children, all adults, are thriving. My husband and I have had many discussions between ourselves and with our children about establishing a trust so that everyone is protected from scams and aging and my one child's vulnerability. However, my parents have insisted that they should have a say in what happens to my child 30 years from now, hopefully, when my husband and I have passed. I actually became really offended and said that they were overstepping. They say that they should have a say in what happens with their money 30 years after they pass. I am very close to my parents, especially my mother. Am I the jerk for feeling they're overstepping boundaries? OP's not the jerk. It would be one thing if you're willing to hear them out and consider what they have to say and what they desire. But beyond that, they don't have any legal right, obviously, to dictate whatever happens here. I just think it would be pretty stupid of them to blow up the whole relationship over not getting to stranglehold this financial decision you're making for your kids. Rita Albertson commented, not the jerk. You're allowed to be offended. You're allowed to act offended. The only say they have in their money post-death is via their wills. If you inherit a bunch of money, it's no longer their money, it's your money to handle as you see fit. Your parents are allowed to not like that, but that doesn't make their feelings your problem. Oopnorf commented, but if OP doesn't inherit the money, and instead their parents put it into a trust with instructions for how the trustees must manage it, then they can control how it's used long after they're dead. It would be a jerk move, but it's perfectly possible. OP responded commenting, 100%. I would totally respect that. It is their money. They can distribute it however they want. Their money will help, but we have a plan to protect the interests of my family. With or without their money, we have a plan. My parents have always used money to try and control my decisions. It didn't work when I was 16 and moved out. It was the 80s. It blows my mind that they're using my at-risk adult child to try and leverage my decisions. I absolutely love them, especially my mother who seems caught in the middle. I just want to know if I'm the jerk for saying no. These are my kids, my plans. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not making a fuss when someone sat in my seat? This seems ridiculous to me, but enough people are carrying on about it, I thought I'd better check. I have ASD, so sometimes my reading of social cues is a bit off. My children participate in a sport that takes place in a hall, and in the hall are these chairs that are clearly designed to be as uncomfortable as possible. I suspect it's to discourage people from actually staying in the hall to watch things. They're there to show the hall operators have made an effort to provide seating, but cause random back spasms to any who dare sit for longer than 3 minutes. A few years ago, a kind family donated a lounge to the hall. It seats 3 and is lovely to sit on. Just the right amount of squish in the cushions, which are kind of fluffy. It's a nice lounge. You can sit on it without contracting arthritis. For the first year, people jostled to get prime position on the lounge. Epic paper, scissors, rock battles were waged, with the victor sitting in comfort for 45 minutes, while people around them crumpled up, twitched, or spasmed in the horrible chairs. Eventually, families drifted away as children grew into new interests, and I was the sole survivor of the original lounge wars. So most days, I sat on the lounge. New families started, but none seemed to want to take advantage of the fluffy comfort on offer. I was the lounge queen. One day, I arrived later than usual, and there was someone else sitting on the lounge. I didn't recognize them, so I figured they must be a new family. I said hello and introduced myself and my child, then went and sat in the horrible chairs. As everyone left, a small group of outraged parents approached me. "Why did you let them sit there? You should have told them that's your seat. That's not okay. They stole your seat. They can't get away with this." I was confused. I pointed out that there were plenty of other seats, that it was a free lounge. Anyone can sit there. I didn't have exclusive rights to the lounge. It turns out none of the other parents wanted to sit there because they thought I would be upset or angry about it. They're upset with me because I never made it obvious that anyone could sit there. Someone even complained to the coach. Now it's become a thing. Parents are arriving earlier and earlier to bag the lounge and give me smug looks when I arrive and they're sitting on it. I'm still not upset about it, but apparently that's not the right way to behave. I don't understand what's going on, and the parent I asked about it scoffed and said, "As if you don't know," and implied I was doing it for attention. Am I the jerk? Please tell me what's going on, because this seems really stupid to me. You know, I'm not sure if I'm the greatest at reading social cues in the moment, but I do feel like I'm at least pretty good when reading through text. That said, I don't understand a single thing that they're doing here. You're just doing it for attention. Doing what? Giving up the lounge? Not staking a royal claim to the throne? Just McHenry commented, "This makes no sense to me. They're upset at you for not being upset. And they're upset at themselves for not trying to take advantage of the seat earlier. Not the jerk. Let them be petty about chairs if they want to." Arinda Sarnia commented, "I think they're upset because they feel stupid. They thought they were being civic heroes, allowing OP to have the lounge, sacrificing their own comfort in the name of courtesy and awareness of other people's needs or something. And now they realize they just made a bunch of incorrect presumptions, and they don't like feeling like their charitable action not only didn't matter, but was wrong. And instead of being introspective about it or deciding it's all right to do something nice for someone else, even if you find out later they don't care, they're taking their feelings out on OP because they think they were made to be chumps." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter she needs to grow up and apologize to her sister? My late husband passed when my oldest daughter, Sophia, was 9, and my youngest daughter, Julie, was 2. Julie has 0 memories of her biological dad. I started to date 4 years after his death and remarried 7 years later. Sophia was 16 and Julie was 9. Sophia wanted nothing to do with him and, looking back, was a jerk to him. My husband, Jim, never tried to force Sophia to see him as a father figure, but Julie did see him as a father figure. She refers to him as dad. Both girls have been to therapy. Sophia hated it, and I actually think it made the issue below worse. Julie liked it, and it helped her overcome never knowing bio-dad. That was the main issue between Sophia and Julie. Sophia thought Julie was abandoning and replacing their bio-dad. Julie made it very clear that Jim is her dad, and basically bio-dad doesn't mean much to her since she doesn't remember him. Many fights and their relationship was strained. Therapy didn't help. Separate and group were tried. It got better when Sophia went off to college and they had space. Julie, 24, is getting married. She announced this during dinner last Saturday and asked for Jim to give her away. Sophia did not take that well and started telling Julie that she was a horrible daughter and that she is replacing Dad. The announcement was ruined and Julie told her not to come to the wedding. I pulled Sophia aside and told her that she needs to apologize to her sister for her outburst, that she is way too old for this and it's time for her to grow the freak up. That it's fine she doesn't see Jim as her father, but get over that her sister does. She was crying when I finished, told me it's my fault for getting remarried in the first place, and had not contacted me since. I know she apologized to Julie, but she won't respond to any of my texts. Same-ish question being asked, here's one of my comments answering it. No, he never forced himself to be a father figure. Bio Dad stayed very alive in memory after my wedding. He wasn't hidden. He still got mentions in story all the time. He was celebrated on his birthday and so on. No grave visiting because he's cremated and is on the fireplace. I think OP's not the jerk here. I think it's unfortunate that therapy didn't seem to work well for Sophia. I think it's just pretty easy to say that it's clear the feelings are pretty complicated for Sophia. And honestly, I hate to even say like this reflects on Sophia as a person, more than it just reflects how there's been lifelong unresolved feelings that are still swirling around. Like at the very least, at least they apologized to Julie after the fact. Russian Roma 5886 commented, "Not the jerk, I agree with everyone else. If Julie's 24 now, Sophia's like 30-something, right? Crazy to still be acting like that into her 30s, especially since Jim has been in her life for so long now. If Sophia was a teenager, I could understand the behavior, but dang dude, she's not a teenager anymore." This next story is, am I the jerk for not standing up to my boyfriend for my friend? Last night, around 2 in the morning, my 18-year-old female friend, 18-year-old female, asked me if I could walk her to this guy's house because she didn't want to walk there alone at night, and she didn't want to go alone in case something happened. The guy she wanted to go see lives like 25 minutes away if we walked there. I said yes, but I didn't feel safe just sitting outside his house at 2 a.m. while they were in there freaking. So I told her I would call my boyfriend, 20-year-old male, to drive us, and we'll drive her there and wait in his car for her. As we're driving there, my boyfriend is kind of making mean comments towards her. He was saying stuff like she's being dumb for going to see a guy who couldn't even give her a ride there and back. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing and she needed to hear that. He kind of went too far by saying the guy was just gonna freak her and send her home and she has no self-respect. My friend was laughing it off the whole time, and she just said she didn't expect anything from him because they weren't together. My boyfriend drove her there, and we waited there and picked her up. As we were leaving, my boyfriend was just looking at my friend, shaking his head, saying he was disappointed. My friend was laughing the whole time. Later, my friend texted me saying I was weird for not standing up for her, and I shouldn't have let him speak to her that way. She said what he was saying really hurt her feelings. I asked her why she didn't say that in the moment, and she said because she thought I was gonna say something to him. I get where she was coming from, but like she was laughing the whole time. So I didn't know she was really upset. Plus, I honestly think she needed to hear it. I'm gonna say OP is the jerk because ultimately, am I wrong in saying that it kind of sounds like OP siding with their boyfriend in the end here? When their friend after the fact asked them, "Hey, why didn't you stand up for me when your boyfriend was acting like this?" OP didn't like address it or like apologize necessarily or say like, you know what, I should have said something. OP kind of navigated around it, deflected it, and ended with, "I think she needed to hear that stuff." Space Ace Case commented, "I mean, if I was your boyfriend, I would be annoyed my girlfriend asked me to drive her friend to her booty call and then wait in the car and drive her home. Yeah, no, should have just told her no instead of driving her and ended at that. You're the jerk." Our next story is, am I the jerk for laughing in the morning and watching TV when my pregnant sister-in-law was trying to sleep? I live in the family home, a small house with my mom and dad. Recently, my brother and his pregnant wife moved in with us to save money so they can eventually buy a house. The long-term plan is that my brother would buy our small family home for cheap for my dad, resell it at a higher price, and then use the profit to buy a bigger place. The idea is that all of us would move in with them. Since they moved in, I've noticed that my sister-in-law will sometimes act like she owns the place. One example, I was about to use the bathroom when she asked if I would be long. I assumed she really needed to pee, but then she told me, "You go first. I have to wash my hair anyway, so I'll take longer." I didn't understand why she asked at all. Then today, around 9:30 a.m., I was talking with my mom in the TV room, which now also serves as her bedroom, since she gave up her actual room right next to it to my brother and his wife when they moved in. We laughed once about something. Around 10 a.m., I turned on the TV and made sure the volume was very low. I was a few minutes into my show, maybe one or two, and my sister-in-law came out of her room and said that my brother snores badly at night, so she barely gets any sleep. She said that once he leaves for work, she finally gets to rest and said something like, "With the TV on now and the laughing earlier, I hear everything because I'm a really light sleeper." Well, it's 10 a.m. now, so it's okay, but the talking and laughter at 9:30? That was a bit much. She was polite about it though. She said everything nicely, not in a harsh tone or anything. But what surprised me is that she never once said something like, "Hey, I'm really sorry to bring this up, but..." I rarely watch TV in the morning, and our laughter was minimal. We've already adjusted to make room for them. They chose to get pregnant while living here. I didn't apologize for the TV or the laughter, and I didn't turn it off either. My mom, as usual, was being understanding toward her and kind of agreed with her in the moment. Later, she told me she does think my sister-in-law is being a bit much. But since she's pregnant and tired, we just have to adjust. Was I actually being inconsiderate? Was it wrong of me to talk to my mom in the morning while sister-in-law was still sleeping in the next room? I'm not sure if I was being disrespectful to a pregnant woman. I feel like I'm not wrong, but maybe I am. You tell me. Thank you. I'm gonna say OP's not the jerk. I'm sorry, but if you're living in a house with kind of a communal situation going on, you can't really bank on having pure silence at 9:30 a.m., which is a very reasonable time to be up and around and making some noise and having some laughter. I mean, God forbid, I would hate to see her reaction if the neighbor decided to start mowing that morning. Where I live, if you're going to go out mowing, you probably want to start at 7:30. Deadroots Official commented, "To be honest, this whole situation is weird. Why is your brother buying the family house just to sell it? What's the point?" Firstly, not only is selling a house in an economy where houses only seem to go up in price completely foolish, but even if you were doing that, why would that dad not just sell the house and give the money to your brother? Secondly, all of this money is going to your brother, which seems to be everything your family has, so what about you? Does your brother and his wife just get everything just because he knocked her up? Thirdly, if you're going through all this effort to sell the house to the brother, resell for higher, use the profit to buy a bigger place, how does this even work? So your dad gets a pittance for his house, your brother gets the value of the house you're in, and somehow that money will buy a bigger place, even though it's only the market price of the current place? Make it make sense. And why all the extra steps to get the bigger house? Why not just a house swap with some money for a couple looking to downsize or something? This is either AI written garbage or the dumbest family situation I've ever heard. And no, not the jerk, 9:30 a.m. is well into daytime. She may be pregnant, but she's a rent-free guest. She can deal with it. Our next story is, am I the jerk? I, 32-year-old male, called my female friend, 28, unreasonable, and she hung up the phone. My friend has a maid who recently lost her brother. The maid had to travel 5 hours away to attend the funeral. She has always been reliable and has never dropped the ball when it comes to her work. The plan was for her to be away for 5 days, but she ended up being away for 6. My friend was angry and annoyed with her maid. I told her it's not a big deal. She doesn't know what might have happened that caused the maid to return a day later. She should show some empathy and let it go. After all, it was just 1 extra day. I told her she was being a bit unreasonable and making a big deal out of nothing. She then just hung up the phone when I asked her to explain why she's mad at her maid for the 1 extra day. Yeah, OP's not the jerk here. I understand, you have a contract or an agreement or whatnot. It kind of sucks or, it's an inconvenience that they showed up 1 extra day late. But considering the circumstances, you have to be human and give them some leeway here, right? Ugh, my dishes are piling up for an extra day. I can't live like this. Can't she just get over her brother and get back here already? How low as a person is the bar? Someone you don't know 70 commented, not the jerk, but do you really expect someone who's flipping out over having to do an extra day of housework on her own because her maid took an extra day to grieve her brother's loss to behave reasonably when you call her out on her lack of empathy? It sounds like she behaved as expected. Our next story is, am I the jerk? Would I be the jerk if I refused to transfer shares in an apartment I inherited to my aunt according to a deal she had with my late mother 16 years ago? My aunt has recently approached me regarding a share of an apartment I inherited from my late mother 16 years ago. My aunt apparently discussed buying my mom out of her share of the apartment 16 years ago, and according to my aunt, they performed a valuation of the apartment and agreed on a sale. Approximately a year or so after this discussion took place, my mother died. Neither her will nor the executor of her estate contains any mention of the apartment, nor is there any written contract or anything else written down regarding the details of the deal. My aunt approached me shortly after the death of my mother, stating only the records she would require from me for the transfer of my inherited share, but mentioned that she currently didn't have the funds to buy me out. In the intervening years, my aunt has brought up the apartment a few times, telling me that we need to finally sort it out and that she owed me money. No specifics were ever mentioned, and the last written email I have is now over a decade old. My aunt now wishes to finally have the share transferred. However, she wants to buy me out of my inherited share according to the valuation of 16 years ago. The current market value of the apartment has, however, gone up by a factor of 4 in the intervening years. I would like to sell my share of the apartment, however, find it unfair that my aunt wants to pay me what the share was 16 years ago rather than its current value. My aunt states that she had a deal with my mother all those years ago and that I should honor that deal. Would I be the jerk if I stood my ground and demand to be paid according to the current market value? A contributing factor to consider is that my aunt now has big health problems and is facing retirement with very little in terms of retirement benefits. So I think OP's not the jerk here, and I think it goes without saying that, there's gotta be a statute of limitations on this verbal agreement. I mean, a supposed verbal agreement is all fine and dandy, but you left that almost approaching 2 decades ago now. When they agreed upon the valuation, the first Avatar was going into theaters. Pleasant Test 6088 commented, "Not the jerk. If you met with a realtor 16 years ago and expressed interest in a house but didn't have enough money to purchase despite a willingness to sell on part of the owners, you couldn't show up 16 years later and expect a purchase for the initial price. The fact that you're related is irrelevant, your aunt's approaching retirement and health problems are irrelevant. She didn't have the money then, so she couldn't buy. If she doesn't have the funds that are currently required, then she can't buy. It's a her problem, not a you problem." Ms. Peach commented, "OP, you're not running a charity, you're managing inherited property. If your aunt wanted to lock in 2009 prices, she should have sealed that deal back in 2009. No paperwork, no payment, just a deal from someone who's now gone? That's not a contract, that's a memory. You're well within your rights to ask for current value." Our next story is, am I the jerk for continuing to take my neighbor's cats to the shelter? I live in a farm, and my livelihood comes from producing foals, baby horses. It takes 11 months for a foal to gestate and costs thousands of dollars just up until they're born. I've also worked extremely hard to turn my farm into a nature reserve of sorts. People travel from out of state to birdwatch at my farm due to a number of rare or uncommon species that nest and visit. Indigo buntings, American woodcock, to name a few. 2 years ago, I got a new neighbor. She's not directly next to my farm, but lives a little ways down the road. Prior to this, we haven't spoken and don't know each other, but we also didn't have any problems. This spring, one of my mares aborted her foal, and a necropsy revealed it was due to toxoplasmosis. If you don't know, that comes from cats and their feces. I thought it was just bad luck, but more recently I've noticed a ton of cats on my property. It started off as just one, but now there's 5 to 10 hanging out every night. They're around so often that I've almost accidentally run them over pulling down my driveway because they're too busy chasing birds or chipmunks to move out of the way of the truck. So I started trapping them and taking them to the Humane Society. Every time I would trap a cat, a few days later it would show up again. I was baffled until my neighbor comes banging on my front door screaming at me that I better stop taking her cats to the shelter and that she's sick and tired of paying their bail. Apparently, she put a collar on one of them with an air tag or something, and it showed up at my place, and she followed it and got it out of the trap. She tells me that she can't afford to keep paying to get them back, and that she loves them, and they're her emotional support animals after her daughter died. I told her that as long as the cats keep turning up on my property, killing the birds and making my horses sick, that I would keep trapping them until she either keeps them inside or runs out of money and can't get them back. She called me heartless and has now started posting on our town Facebook page that I'm trying to unalive her cats. Some people understand where I'm coming from, and others say that I should just try to chase the cats away or put up cat-proof fencing around my pastures and property instead of harassing an old woman. So, am I the jerk? So, I am a staunch pet lover through and through. Dog and cat doesn't matter. But I can definitely recognize that it's an objectively awful thing to let a cat live as an outside cat. Not only is it causing major issues for OP and their horses and just bothering OP being on their property, but it's also probably pretty well known how much of an ecological terror house cats are. I don't think OP included the bird-watching side hustle coincidentally, because the cats that are roaming around unchecked, they're the ones that love to unalive everything they see. Nova Byzantine commented, "Not the jerk. Your neighbor's complaining about not having the money to keep buying her cats out of the shelter? Has she considered how her cats repeatedly coming onto your property endangers your livelihood? If she's had enough money to tag her cats and buy them out of the shelter repeatedly, she certainly had enough money to put up a fence on her side of the property." Also, not to downplay someone's trauma, but emotional support animals? I've heard way too many people just dub any animal they have an emotional support animal, regardless of the impact it has, just to try and get away with obscene amounts of BS. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking off my shirt in front of my daughter's friends because I was having a hot flash? I, 55-year-old female, felt I was on fire in my living room, so I took off my shirt. I had a vest underneath. My daughter Becky, 27-year-old female, and several of her friends were in the living room. I was humiliated as I was sweaty and red in a sweaty vest. 2 days later, Becky confronted me. She said I embarrassed her and that her male friends are talking about me to her. I told her I couldn't help it, but she called me a liar. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk. I think it's a very valid reason, and you're in the comfort and safety of your own home. That said, I can see why the kid would be upset, but I would expect that kind of behavior from somebody about 10 years younger, not necessarily a 27-year-old. That said, I live in a very hot climate, so while I'm not necessarily in the business of having hot flashes left and right, I certainly know how it feels to be very heated and feeling like you just need some way to cool down just for a second real quick. Tangled Up Puppeteer commented, I remember the first time my mom had a hot flash. We had a bunch of people over and I don't remember for what, but it was a co-ed group and it was my friends and my sister's friends. There were probably 25 people that didn't belong to us in that house. My mom came in to find out what we wanted for dinner. We were all arguing and she was clearly done with our shenanigans. She opened her mouth, likely to tell us all to eat dirt, when this weird sound came out of her. Honestly, it sounded like, I don't know, someone passing on. Literally everyone stopped and looked at her. She was very red, sweating profusely. She was fine maybe 10 seconds before, and without even thinking, she just ripped her shirt off, up and over her head, not actually tearing the shirt or anything, but there wasn't even a hesitation. She was in her bra and her whole chest was red like she was sunburned, and then she just turned and left the room and went into the kitchen. Literally everyone watched her go. It's an open floor plan, so we watched her go straight into the kitchen, open the freezer, and grab a handful of ice from the bucket, and shove it in her bra and stick her whole head into the freezer. Not one word from her. She did all of this in a weird way, like she wasn't even in control of it. It was just the only way to stop the burning. 2 of my friends apparently had grandparents who had gone through it when they were younger. They just followed her into the kitchen, both got paper towels and ran them under the tap with cool water. They went over and started applying them to her. I'd never actually witnessed a hot flash before. The one thing I did not even begin to think was that she was lying about what she was going through, and I most certainly wasn't embarrassed. My mother looked like she was being boiled alive from the inside out. Even my youngest sister, who spent 98% of her childhood completely mortified about everything, wasn't remotely embarrassed. We just needed to know she was okay. My mother literally walked half our downstairs in a group of people 25 plus large, girls and boys mixed, in her bra. The only concern anyone had was if she was okay. No one sexualized the situation, no one made her feel like she did anything wrong, because she didn't. She just found out at that very moment under no uncertain circumstances that she was in for a long few years ahead. And she most certainly did not like the feeling of her insides boiling. She was trying not to pass on. She didn't give two craps who saw, and she wasn't thinking one thought about whether or not it was socially appropriate. She just knew she thought she was burning in that moment. You were in your home, these were adults invading your space, and you had a shirt on under your shirt. If she has a problem, she can hang out somewhere else or couch surf until she stops thinking a woman is faking actual medical symptoms. She's an adult. It's time she stopped acting like a preteen, hopelessly mortified that women have unpleasant experiences as women. Do yourself a favor, keep the house 5 degrees colder than you ever kept it before. This made my mother sane. She would either end up losing the shirt or would take up residence in the freezer after that. She didn't have to do both. This was before they had any real help for this either, she just had to deal with it. They basically told her to drink cool liquids, but her flashes were absolutely brutal. From one daughter to another mother, your job is to get through it without bursting into flames or ending anyone. Your daughter has to learn to live with it or learn to work around it. Nature doesn't care if she's embarrassed, and honestly, neither should you. Apologize if you want to, but not the jerk for having a body that did something completely natural that you cannot control. Anyone trying to shame you for just simply existing while being a woman in menopause should go to heck. Oh, and talk to your doctor. They actually do have stuff that can help a little bit. Good luck. You'll get through it, and then you will be period, cramp, and flash free. Our next story is, am I the jerk for pulling our neighbor's dog away from our baby when it wasn't listening to the owner? My husband and I live in a farming area, and we have a less than 1-year-old baby and a 5-year-old German Shepherd. Neighbors got 2 golden retriever puppies shortly after they moved in a year or so ago. They didn't really train them, and when the dogs would see us, they would run over and jump up on us, not listen when being called back, etc. It wasn't unusual to see our neighbors on our porch or in our yard trying to get them. Overall, though, we didn't really have an issue with it, as our dogs would play together. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, my husband was out with a baby in the driveway and the puppies run over, start getting into the baby's face and won't listen when being called to get away. The owner doesn't come over to get them, just stands in their yard yelling. Our baby starts crying because they won't get out of its face. So my husband grabs the dog by the collar and quickly pulls it away, causing the collar to come off. It's the kind of collar where you feed it through the square and the tension holds it, no buckle or belt type closure. He gets the dog back to our neighbor's house, goes back and hands them the collar while holding the still crying baby. Our neighbor freaks out and starts yelling at him, "What did you do to my dog?" No question about if the baby was okay or what happened. A few days after, we're out back, and our neighbor's dad is mowing their lawn. Husband's on vacation, wife is home. Walks over with an attitude asking why we're mistreating their dog. We said we've never, and he says they have us on their ring. We repeat that we have never and try to explain what happened the other day. He cuts in, "They're not going to hurt the baby." I said, "I know that, but my baby doesn't know that." And he replied, "They're just puppies, they don't know better. Let's keep the dogs in their own yards from now on." We said fine, and he walked away. I sent a text to our neighbor telling him about the interaction with his dad, the accusations, and sorry if our dog has ever been a nuisance in their yard. Ours will wander over on occasion, but comes back when called and listens if we say stay or leave it. He texts back that no one ever said anything, and they were upset because of how forcefully my husband pulled on the collar. They were just puppies, and they would never treat our dog that way. Their dogs have come over to our yard a few times since, but we just ignore them and go inside while they yell from their yard at the dogs to come back. Yesterday was the first time ours had wandered over, and the husband yelled at us from his porch to come get our dog. They've still never asked if our kid was okay. It's been all about their puppy. Yeah, no, once again, big time dog lover, big time cat lover. You can't chalk it up to, they're just puppies. They're just untrained German Shepherds. It's not like those have a bad history or anything. Emphasis on the untrained part. As absolutely sure as that owner may be that their puppy will never do any harm to any baby anywhere, you as a parent cannot take that chance, especially when you know how untrained they are. And lastly, let's be clear, what the husband did wasn't even that bad. You pulled on the dog's collar kind of hard. Is the dog hurt? Is the dog whining and whimpering in pain? I don't think so. Scenarioing commented, I had a dog snapping and snarling at me on the verge of lunging, and the owner told me the dog won't bother me despite what was happening before his very eyes. Some dog owners have this mentality, and your neighbors are among them. These nut jobs letting their dogs be this way are dangerous, and child protection is paramount. You are as not the jerk as it gets. Our next story is, am I the jerk? My parents live overseas and visit and stay each Christmas. Someone they know from church also wants to stay with us. Am I the jerk for saying no? Background, my 31-year-old female parents live overseas. They visit at least twice a year, one of those times being at Christmas. While here, they stay with me and my husband, male 31, and our 3 young kids. We love having them stay. Today, however, I got a call from my mom saying their friend George, in his mid-20s I think, who's from their church, who they've known for a few years now, says he thinks of them as second parents now, wants to visit Canada and stay at our house along with my parents for Christmas. My mom said they had spoken about him visiting Canada in the past, but she imagined this would happen when they had moved back here and had their own place, so she always said she liked the idea. George went to dinner at my parents' house yesterday and brought up coming to Canada this Christmas to stay with them at our house, and my mom didn't have the heart to say no. She asked if this would be okay with us. My husband and I have never met George, and I'm due to have my 4th baby in a few months, and it's our year to host Christmas for our extended family. So Christmas is already going to be a bit hectic. I just don't love the idea of someone I don't know staying in our house and being around our family and tagging along and joining all our family traditions. Nothing specifically against George. I'm sure he's nice enough, if my parents think so. Space-wise, we do have a study that my husband uses to work from home. However, my husband will still need to work some days before and after Christmas, and I don't know what kind of dates George is thinking of staying. I told my mom while I don't really want George to stay here, but if he gets his own accommodation, he can come for lunch at Christmas with the rest of the extended family. My mom was nice about it, but I could tell she was a bit disappointed or sad and mentioned the trip would become a lot more expensive for him, so he might not be able to do it. I can tell she felt awkward to have to tell him he can't stay here. For context, my parents have always been people to open their home when others need it, so I feel a bit bad saying no and now making my mom have to pass the message along. I think most people in my position would have said no, but I do feel a bit bad, so just wanting to know, am I the jerk here? Should I have thought about it more before giving an answer? I don't think I would change my mind though. There's definitely some people-pleasing stuff going on here, some empathy things going on here. Honestly, I would be right in the same boat as OP. That's a character flaw of my own, which is when there's a scenario where you could make somebody stay, even at the cost of making yours miserable and giving up your space and maybe even making your husband's work schedule incredibly stressful, you still feel some level of guilt in saying no, even though it's completely justifiable to say no. Delicious Angel commented, not the jerk, totally not the jerk. Gonna list down some pointers here why you aren't the jerk. It is your home. Your parents are guests, as much as they are family. They're still guests first. They should have asked you first. If George's costs will become more expensive, then it'll be more expensive. That's what holidays are. You pay for food, accommodation, the works. Your parents are his second parents? Then perhaps they could help him with his accommodation costs? Extra study? Yeah, so your husband needs to use it, so no longer is it extra. Inconveniencing yourself for family or friends is one thing, but for a stranger? Why? It's a nice thing to do, but you're not obligated to. You're expecting a baby. That means potentially breastfeeding the baby on demand. It would be incredibly uncomfortable to not feel comfortable in your home with a stranger there, I would imagine. Add on the additional hosting that you'd have to do. That's exhausting. A stranger exposed to your children 24/7 with potential access to them without supervision, etc. Hard no. Call me paranoid, but this isn't something I would be comfortable with. Too many cases. As lovely and accommodating as you are, this simply isn't something you'll be the jerk for. Is it nice? Yeah, perhaps, but with all the reasons, especially points 5 and 6, I would not open my home to stay in. OP responded commenting, thank you. I feel the same about my kids and someone I don't know. My parents are kind to him, but I think he feels more of a connection towards them, even though they do want to be there for him and care for him as a friend. I think it was just an awkward situation because they invited him in the future thinking that they would live here again and he would stay with them, but then he asked about this Christmas and it was all a bit awkward to then take it back, I guess. I think maybe he should do the trip when they move back. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking our house key with me and letting my roommate out? I live with 2 friends and we share a single key. Last week they went out on vacation and said they would come back only in mid-July. On Friday, I also came back to my hometown and, with their schedule in mind, brought the key with me so I could make 2 copies for them and then return to our shared apartment 4 days later on Tuesday. Today morning, on Monday, one of my friends already are on our apartment's footstep calling me asking me where the key is. We usually leave it at the reception, and I tell him I brought it with me because I was thinking he would return only after 3 weeks, so I would have time to make another 2 copies for them. He told me I shouldn't have done that. What are we going to do now? I should have left it at the reception, etc. So, am I the jerk? I'm gonna lean towards not the jerk. Maybe OP should have accounted for it if they didn't exactly know when they would be coming back. To be fair, OP said, I'm gonna get a couple copies of these keys made on Friday. I don't know OP's schedule, but Saturday and Sunday go by, probably 2 of the most convenient days to go out and get key duplicates made. All around, just fundamental roommate communication breakdown. Potter Squash commented, everybody sucks here. It's 2025. I refuse to believe we live in a world where we can have this discussion and somehow it takes more than 20 minutes for 3 people to get extra keys cut. Our next story is, am I the jerk? A prior tenant keeps showing up to my home, banging on the door and honking. I just moved to a new rental home about a month ago. Ever since, I've been getting a significant amount of junk mail and bills addressed to the prior tenant. I did the right thing, wrote return to sender not at this address on each envelope and put them in the mailbox with the flag up, but the mail keeps coming. About 2 weeks ago, a woman drove aggressively into my driveway honking. I work from home and my office window faces the road. I keep the blinds open, so I clearly saw a lady in her car waving at me with a huge cast on her wrist. She wouldn't get out, so for safety, I started recording and hid from view. I don't trust anyone, sorry. She eventually left. Next day, same thing. Pulled in, honked, waved. I hid again. She screamed, I want my mail. Sorry, I don't know you. I'm a female alone in a new area. This could easily be a trap. When she left, I noticed a package I was expecting was missing. I called non-emergency dispatch, told them what happened, described her in the car, and that my package was gone. They said they would send an officer. About 20 minutes later, a cop and the lady showed up. Small town, so they found her fast. The officer acted as a neutral party while she explained that she uses informed delivery, saw my name, found me on Facebook, and messaged me a nonsense request to get her mail. It was marked as spam, so I never saw it. I told her any mail not mine is marked and returned. I even taped a note on my door saying the same. She claimed she didn't take the package and it still hasn't shown up. I told her she scared me and she said she only honked because she was scared of my dog, a 10-pound chihuahua. Things calmed down and they left. Side note, this is a huge privacy violation. She still has informed delivery here and found me on Facebook, which makes me uncomfortable. I contacted the post office and requested they stop her informed delivery access for this address. I thought it was over after the police visit, but yesterday she came back in a different vehicle, pulled in aggressively, honked, rang the doorbell 3 times, and banged on the door. I didn't answer and hid again. She left quickly. Am I the jerk for ignoring her, not giving her the mail, not responding to her on Facebook, and calling the police? I'm not collecting her junk mail like a free P.O. box. I also found out how she was evicted, had lots of people at the house, and treated the place horribly. I saw the condition when I toured. Filthy. OP's not the jerk, and every time that lady shows up, OP needs to immediately call the non-emergency line or even straight up the emergency line. I think it's verifiably hostile what she's doing here, and you want to build that record up, so they're going to take this very seriously. If she wants to keep playing that game and you keep calling the authorities, at some point there's going to be something to press charges on. Discount Mythroll commented, not the jerk. You may want to look into filing for an anti-harassment order against this woman. I may install a Ring camera or something else you can speak to her through without opening the door. Next time she shows up, speak to her through the camera and let her know firmly that you will not be collecting her mail for her, that she needs to file a change of address with the post office, and that you will continue to write "return to sender" on her mail. This way, you have recordings of telling her this, recordings of her showing up, and a recording of any mail theft. The Facebook stalking is really creepy, and if you're able to get the anti-harassment order, it should help facilitate a stop to any informed tracking she has on mail to that address. Keep a record of the police incident and her Facebook messages for the AHO. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my mother-in-law to please stop sending me cake? I, 31-year-old female, have a mother-in-law, 55-year-old female, who is a kind, soft-spoken baker. Since I got married 4 months ago, my mother-in-law has sent me at least one cake per month. I'm not overweight right now, but I used to be obese, and that was heck I don't want to go back to. I already gained 13 pounds since the wedding. My husband, 29-year-old male, doesn't like sweets. He's thin and he's never been overweight. I tried as gently as I possibly could, asking my mother-in-law to please stop sending me cake. She seemed okay, and I was hoping she was okay, but my brother-in-law, 25-year-old male, came over to tell me that I broke his mom's heart. He said I should have re-gifted her cakes. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk, and I don't think it's fair for OP to have to do this people-pleasing behavior of trying to figure out who's gonna get the re-gifted cake this week. Could OP take the time to figure out some kind of homeless shelter gifting pipeline? Sure. Doesn't mean it's fair for OP to have to try to take on that burden and pretty much lie about it. Psychonaut 1008 commented, not the jerk. But you could ask her to help you with weight management by baking something healthy, and tell her that her cakes are so delicious you just can't keep yourself from eating them. Request them for special occasions and make a big deal of them then. This is how she shows that she likes you. Our next story is, am I the jerk for picking a dinner my girlfriend didn't like while playing a game? My girlfriend wanted us to play a game where we go to the grocery store and play rock, paper, scissors to determine what we'll eat for dinner that night. We do 4 rounds, one for appetizer, dessert, entree, and drink. I won 3 out of the 4 rounds, appetizer, entree, and dessert. I picked frozen pizza for the entree, to which my girlfriend said, I'm not eating that. I don't like frozen pizza. I said, oh, I'll pick something else then. And then she said, no, you won. I can't tell you what to pick. So I still chose frozen pizza. She was then frustrated and quiet with me throughout the rest of the night. Even when I mentioned, okay, I put the pizza in the oven for 19 minutes, she said, I'm not eating it, so you don't have to tell me, in an annoyed tone. Overall, this gave me the impression I did something wrong by choosing something she didn't like, but at the same time, I feel frustrated that we agreed to play the game, and then she ended up not eating what I chose after losing. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk here. She's a sore loser. Obviously, she kind of went into it thinking, oh, this 50-50 chance I'm gonna win. She probably had the whole menu planned out with specifically what she wanted. Part of me is like, go talk to her. Tell her, look, I just want what makes us happy. I don't want you to be upset over frozen pizza. And then another part of me is screaming out, that's just crazy childish behavior that she needs to get over on her own, and you shouldn't go and coddle against that. T and Kleenex commented, all the you're the jerks are wrong. You offered to put the pizza back, but she told you not to. For her to be outwardly salty is totally on her. Our next story is, am I the jerk for packing my roommate's stuff when she's supposed to be moving out in 3 days? I was cleaning the living room and kitchen, and I put some of her non-essential stuff in 2 boxes. Winter boots, a blender she doesn't use, a bag of soil for her plants, etc. I left the boxes open in the living room so she could see what was in them and add stuff if she wanted to. I was cleaning and trying to make space because my girlfriend will be moving in tomorrow, so it'll be cramped for 2 or 3 days. I also wanted to help my roommate because she has lots of stuff and hasn't started packing yet, which I admit kind of stresses me out. Well, roommate didn't say anything, but she put everything I packed back to its original place, even if she doesn't use it, including the box with her winter boots and fall boots. We're in July. I found this very odd and I asked her about it. She said she didn't like me touching and moving her stuff, which, granted, I understand, but I was actually trying to help because she's moving in 3 days and hasn't even started to pack yet. Am I the jerk? You know, I'm gonna say OP is softly the jerk. Like, even if they had good intentions here, they weren't asked to go and move this stuff around, touch their possessions, box these things up. And you gotta think about the optics. How does it look coming back to the place and seeing some of your random belongings thrown into boxes right on the couch? It's gonna look like OP is screaming with a middle finger saying, "Get the freak out of this place." Key South commented, "You're the jerk that was aggressive. For the next 3 days, that's still her place. You don't get to control how or when she packs. You're acting like she should be gone already. Maybe you all weren't good roommates, but if you were, then that was mean. You're telegraphing that you want her out of there already." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.